Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Misunderstanding a Sigma female is not a mistake, it's the default. Everywhere you look, people are convinced they have her figured out. The cold loner, the mystery woman, the one too independent for love. But here's the brutal truth. Most of what's said about Sigma females is laughably wrong, built on lazy stereotypes that crumble the moment you actually watch one move through the world. In fact, psychologists estimate that over 80% of the judgments people make about others are based on projection, not observation. That means most people aren't seeing the Sigma female at all. They're just staring at their own assumptions in disguise. And trust me, she knows it, and secretly finds it amusing. This is why the Sigma female is often treated like a riddle wrapped in contradictions. She's private yet magnetic, detached yet deeply loyal, unpredictable yet relentlessly consistent with herself. People keep putting her in boxes she never agreed to, and the irony is, she doesn't even bother breaking out of them. She just watches people trip over their own misreadings like it's free entertainment. So, today, we're cutting through the fog. Not with clichés, not with recycled internet fluff, but with the kind of insights that make you realize you never actually knew what a Sigma female was in the first place. Because the truth isn't just different, it's extraordinary. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Number one, they're not uncontrollable. They control themselves too well. People assume Sigma females can't be managed because they're wild, rebellious, or allergic to authority. That's the lazy explanation. The truth is far sharper. Sigma females are almost impossible to control because they've already mastered themselves long before anyone else tries to. Most people live in reaction mode. They bend when someone raises their voice. They soften when someone flatters them. They cave when pressure builds. Sigma females don't. They've trained themselves to spot those exact levers: guilt, charm, fear, approval, and strip them of their power. By the time someone attempts to push those buttons, she's already disabled the wiring. What looks like stubborn resistance is actually self-discipline running so deep that manipulation feels like trying to catch smoke. This isn't about being hard-headed for the sake of it. It's about building a private system of rules and boundaries that she enforces with brutal consistency. She knows where her line is, and she doesn't need to shout about it. If someone crosses it, they find out quickly that there's no negotiation, no emotional blackmail, no second chance. Control fails because she isn't relying on anyone else to define her. And here's the irony most people miss. Sigma females don't fear control at all. They're not allergic to structure, leadership, or even compromise. They simply refuse to hand over the steering wheel of their identity. They're fine cooperating, but the second it starts smelling like dependence or submission, they quietly step out of reach. That's why bosses, friends, or partners often find them maddening. They can't be bribed with status, cornered with authority, or seduced with validation. These women play on a different frequency where self-command is the currency. And once you realize that, you see why manipulation doesn't just fail on them, it embarrasses the person trying. At the heart of it, people misjudge Sigma females because they confuse external control with internal strength. The Sigma doesn't resist being controlled because she's wild. She resists because she's already locked down her own mind and choices so tightly that no one else's grip can even get a hold. That's not rebellion. That's mastery. Number two, they're not unfeminine. They redefine femininity on their terms. People love to slap the label unfeminine on Sigma females because they don't play by the ready-made script society lays out for women. The script says you should be soft in a way that pleases others, agreeable in a way that avoids tension, and ambitious only if it doesn't intimidate anyone. Sigma females don't just ignore that script, they shred it and write their own. And that unsettles people who only know how to measure femininity in one narrow shape. A Sigma female isn't rejecting her femininity. She's redefining it so it belongs to her and her alone. One day that might look like sharp ambition, setting goals that scare most people into silence. Another day it might be her pouring loyalty and fire into the people she chooses to protect. To outsiders it looks inconsistent, like she's switching masks. But in reality, It's her rejecting the idea that being a woman has to fit into a polished box that someone else drew decades ago. The misunderstanding comes from this. People confuse traditional compliance with femininity itself. When a Sigma female refuses to bend just to make others comfortable, she's seen as masculine or cold. When she stays calm under pressure instead of panicking, she's accused of being detached. Yet what she's doing is more radical. She's proving that femininity isn't about performance for others, it's about how a woman chooses to own herself. This is exactly why she threatens both men and women who cling to tradition. She doesn't announce that she's strong, she simply operates as though she never needed anyone's permission. That alone rewrites the social contract in ways that feel dangerous to people who've only known women to either comply or rebel. The Sigma female does neither. She reconstructs. And here's the beauty of it. Her version of femininity is not a rejection, it's an expansion. It's a way of saying that being feminine can include intelligence that intimidates, independence that doesn't apologize, and strength that isn't loud but immovable. People call it unfeminine because they can't categorize it. But in reality, it's the purest form of femininity, one that refuses to be borrowed, packaged, or dictated. It's femininity, fully owned. Number 3. They're not against belonging. They're against dependency. Most people get this part of Sigma females completely wrong. They assume that if a woman doesn't throw herself into groups, cliques, or communities with visible enthusiasm, then she must hate belonging altogether. But that's not the reality. Sigma females don't reject connection, they just reject the kind of connection that turns into chains. For them, relationships and belonging are like seasoning, not the meal itself. They value closeness, but they don't confuse it with survival. While others may define themselves by the circles they're in, the approval they receive, or the tribe they pledge loyalty to, Sigma females build their identity from the inside out. Their sense of self isn't up for negotiation, and it doesn't collapse just because someone disapproves or walks away. That's where the distinction lies. Belonging is welcome, but dependency is poison. If a friendship or relationship starts demanding that she shrink herself, play a role, or trade authenticity for acceptance, she quietly withdraws. It's not coldness, it's self-preservation. She knows that once belonging becomes a lifeline, you're no longer free. You start obeying unspoken rules just to keep your spot. The Sigma female would rather walk alone than live as a hostage to validation. This outlook unsettles people who rely on group identity to feel safe. They see her detachment from dependency as arrogance or aloofness, when in truth it's discipline. She doesn't avoid bonds. She just approaches them without fear of losing herself inside them. That's why her connections, when they do exist, tend to be stronger, sharper, and more real. They're not built on neediness. They're built on choice. In a world where most people trade their independence for the comfort of belonging, the Sigma female flips the equation. She belongs only where her freedom remains intact. And if that option isn't available, she chooses solitude over submission every time. To her, connection is beautiful, but never at the cost of becoming dependent. That's not rejection of belonging, it's mastery of it. Number 4. They're not risk-averse. They're risk calculators. People often mistake Sigma females for being overly cautious or even risk-averse, but that's only because they don't understand how these women approach decisions. A Sigma female isn't afraid of risk. She's allergic to recklessness. She won't leap just because the crowd is leaping, and she won't gamble simply to look bold. Every move she makes has been weighed, dissected, and run through a kind of internal cost-benefit filter that most people don't even realize she's operating with. What others see as hesitation is actually calculation. While most people focus on the surface, how glamorous or exciting a risk looks, the Sigma female digs deeper. She's asking, what's the hidden cost? Who benefits the most? What am I trading for this? She knows that some risks are nothing more than traps dressed up as opportunities, designed to drain time, energy, or identity. Because of that, she often rejects risks that everyone else is rushing toward, and later people wonder how she knew. But make no mistake, she isn't conservative. When she finds a risk that aligns with her vision, She'll take it boldly, even if it makes no sense to anyone else. In fact, she often takes risks others would never dare to, but by the time she moves, she's already mapped out multiple outcomes in her mind. To outsiders, her decision looks reckless. In reality, it's the smartest move on the board. That's why Sigma females often surprise people. They seem quiet, detached, and calculating, and then suddenly they're miles ahead because of one decisive leap no one else saw coming. This calculated relationship with risk also means she's hard to manipulate. People can't bait her into rash decisions with fear or seduction because she's already stripped the emotional fluff away. She doesn't chase thrills or approval, she chases results. And when she does take a risk, it's not about proving herself, it's about building leverage for the future. The irony is that people who call Sigma females risk-averse are often the ones trapped by impulsive mistakes. The Sigma simply waits, studies, and then acts with precision. That's not hesitation, that's strategy. And it's exactly why her risks look less like gambles and more like inevitabilities. Number 5, they don't hate attention. They hate forced attention. Sigma females often get mislabeled as women who shy away from attention, as if they're timid or allergic to being noticed. That's not the case at all. They don't hate attention. They hate the kind that feels cheap, fake, or forced. They refuse to play the game of putting themselves on display just to keep others entertained or comfortable. To them, attention is only meaningful when it's real, when it flows naturally from who they are and what they're doing. Anything else feels like theater, and they have zero interest in performing for the sake of applause. This is why people misunderstand them. In a world obsessed with validation, likes, comments, approval, clicks, the Sigma female disrupts the pattern. She won't laugh louder than she wants to, won't dress a certain way just to be seen, and won't bend her voice or body to fit into social expectations. For her, all of that feels artificial, and artificial attention feels insulting. It's like being rewarded for something that isn't even her. And she'd rather be overlooked entirely than praised for a version of herself that isn't authentic. But here's where the paradox comes in. When the attention aligns with her vision, she doesn't shrink from it, she commands it. The same woman who ignored shallow validation will own a room without hesitation when she's standing in her truth. That's because the Sigma female sees attention as a tool, not as a lifeline. She uses it to amplify her goals, her values, or her impact, not to feed her ego. And because she's not desperate for it, her presence carries a natural gravity that people can't fake. What throws people off is that they expect consistency in performance. They think someone either craves attention or avoids it. The Sigma female does neither. She rejects the forced spotlight but welcomes the one that emerges from authenticity. And when it does, she wears it without apology, almost as if she's been waiting for people to finally catch up. That's why attention never controls her, it bends to her. She doesn't chase it, but she doesn't fear it either. The difference is that she lets attention serve her purpose, rather than her needing attention to serve hers. That's the quiet power most people never understand. Number 6, they aren't non-confrontational. They weaponize patience. People often mistake a Sigma female's calmness for avoidance, assuming she doesn't like confrontation or that she's too detached to engage. That couldn't be further from the truth. She isn't afraid of conflict. She simply refuses to waste energy on messy, loud battles that rarely lead anywhere. Instead, she uses something far more devastating: patience. Where most people rush to defend themselves, over-explain, or fight back impulsively, the Sigma female sits still and lets her opponent unravel under the weight of their own words and actions. This patience isn't passivity, it's strategy. She knows that when someone is angry, desperate, or trying to manipulate, they reveal more than they intend to. The longer they speak, the more contradictions slip out. The more they push, the more obvious their weak spots become. And while they're burning themselves out in the noise of confrontation, she's taking notes in silence. By the time they've talked themselves into a corner, the damage is already done, and she hasn't lifted a finger. It's a brutal method because it denies the opponent what they're secretly craving: reaction. Most conflicts thrive on escalation. One person shouts, the other shouts louder. The Sigma female breaks that cycle by refusing to engage on demand. She doesn't reward drama with drama. Instead, she lets her stillness work like a mirror, reflecting the other person's chaos back at them. Eventually, they either implode from their own contradictions or retreat in frustration, realizing they've lost control of the situation. This is why her confrontations are so unnerving. People expect either submission or aggression, but she gives neither. Her silence is not fear, and her patience is not weakness. It's a weapon designed to make others overexpose themselves while she remains unshaken. By the time she does choose to speak or act, her words cut deeper because they come after she has absorbed everything and calculated the most precise strike. In the end, Sigma females don't avoid confrontation. They redefine it. They don't waste time wrestling in the mud when they can let their opponent bury themselves. Their patience isn't kindness. It's a blade they keep hidden until the exact moment it's needed. And that's far more lethal than any loud argument could ever be. Number 7, they're not unreachable. They're selectively accessible. Sigma females are often painted as unreachable, as if they live in some emotional tower, cut off from everyone. That's a lazy misunderstanding. They're not unreachable at all. They're just brutally selective about who gets access. Instead of scattering their energy across dozens of shallow bonds, they invest in a handful of people with an intensity that can feel overwhelming. It's not isolation, it's filtration. This selective accessibility is what confuses outsiders. Most people are used to women who are socially open, constantly available, or willing to maintain endless small talk just to stay connected. The Sigma female doesn't play that game. She doesn't hand out access as a courtesy. If you're in her inner circle, it's because you've proven you bring something real, authenticity, loyalty, depth. If you don't, you'll find her doors locked no matter how hard you knock. And here's where the irony kicks in. Once you're chosen, she doesn't hold back. A Sigma female can be so present, so loyal, and so mentally invested that it's almost disarming. People who assumed she was cold or distant are shocked to discover how deeply she engages when she decides someone is worth her time. That's the part most people never see, the intensity behind the wall. To the outside world, she looks like a mystery. To the ones she lets in, she's an all-in force of nature. This is why she gets misunderstood so often. Her boundaries look like detachment, when in truth they're standards. She's not avoiding people, she's avoiding the wrong people. And because she's not desperate for approval or connection, she doesn't water down those standards just to fit in. The result is that the Sigma female exists in two very different worlds at once. For most people, she'll always seem distant, unreachable, almost ghost-like. But for the rare few she chooses, she's one of the most intensely present people they'll ever meet. She isn't hard to reach, she just refuses to be reachable by everyone. That difference changes everything. Number 8. They don't need space. They create psychological territory. People often assume Sigma females need space because they're loners, but that's too shallow of a read. They don't just need space, they create psychological territory. This isn't about being distant for the sake of it. It's about carving out invisible borders around their identity. Borders that even the closest people in their lives can't cross without permission. To the Sigma female, these boundaries aren't negotiable. They're the foundation of how she maintains her sense of self. What makes this territory so different is that it's not physical, it's mental, emotional, even spiritual. You could sit right next to a Sigma female, share the same room, the same bed, or the same life. But you'll still feel there's a private inner world you can't just walk into. It's not that she doesn't want intimacy, it's that she knows intimacy without boundaries is invasion. To her, intrusion feels like trespassing, no matter how well-intentioned it might be. This is where people get frustrated. They mistake her private world as rejection, when in truth it's protection. She can love fiercely, but her love doesn't erase her identity. She won't collapse herself into another person just to prove loyalty. That's why even those closest to her sometimes feel a distance they can't quite name. It's not coldness. It's her way of making sure she never disappears inside someone else's expectations. The irony is that her psychological territory makes her relationships stronger, not weaker. because she doesn't blur into others. Her presence is always authentic. She can give fully without resentment because she knows her inner borders remain intact. It's the difference between giving by choice and giving under pressure. And when she does let someone step inside her private territory, it's a privilege that carries more weight than any grand gesture ever could. To outsiders, this looks like solitude. To her, it's sovereignty. Sigma females don't live in cages built by others, and they don't even build cages for themselves. They live on open ground, territory they've claimed, defended, and maintained with clarity. If someone can't respect that invisible border, they don't get to stay. It's as simple and as uncompromising as that. Number 9. They're not obsessed with freedom. They're obsessed with leverage. People love to say Sigma females are obsessed with freedom, as if they're just rebels running from responsibility. That's not the truth. They aren't chasing freedom for its own sake. They're obsessed with leverage. What looks like independence from the outside is actually a carefully engineered system designed to guarantee one thing: options. A Sigma female structures her life so that no one can corner her, control her, or hold her hostage to circumstances. She doesn't just avoid dependence. She actively designs her choices, routines, and commitments to keep herself from being trapped. This could mean financial independence, emotional self-reliance, or simply the ability to walk away from situations that compromise her values. To her, leverage is freedom's sharper, more practical sibling. It's not about drifting through life untethered. It's about making sure she always has an exit, an alternative, or a backup that keeps her from being owned. That's why people misunderstand her. They see her turning down opportunities, refusing obligations, or saying no to commitments that others would gladly accept. To the average eye, it looks like she's being stubborn or fearful. In reality, she's running the calculation. Does this give me more options, or does it take them away? If the answer is the latter, she walks without hesitation. This obsession with leverage makes her relationships different too. She doesn't cling, she doesn't beg, and she doesn't tolerate being treated like someone who can't survive without a partner, a group, or a job. It's not arrogance, it's protection. She knows the moment someone believes she needs them to function, the balance of power shifts, and she refuses to hand that kind of control to anyone. The irony is that this mindset doesn't make her cold. It makes her trustworthy, because when she stays, it's never out of dependency. It's choice, pure and clear. People around her may not always understand her resistance to being boxed in, but deep down, they sense it. She cannot be cornered. Sigma females don't build their lives around freedom as an abstract idea. They build them around leverage, because leverage guarantees that freedom will never be taken away. And that makes them almost impossible to trap. Number 10. They're not difficult to read, they're impossible to predict. People often complain that Sigma females are hard to read, as if they're a puzzle with missing pieces, but that's not the real challenge. They're not just unreadable, they're impossible to predict. Mystery suggests that, given enough time, someone could eventually figure them out. Prediction, on the other hand, implies pattern, and that's exactly what a Sigma female refuses to give anyone. Most people reveal themselves through repetition. They argue the same way, chase the same validation, and fall into the same emotional traps again and again. That makes them easy to anticipate, easy to control. A Sigma female breaks this cycle. Just when someone thinks they've mapped out her moves, she pivots into a direction no one expected, leaving them scrambling to adjust. This isn't random chaos. It's controlled unpredictability, rooted in her refusal to let anyone hold a script over her life. This unpredictability unnerves people because it robs them of leverage. You can't manipulate someone if you don't know how they'll respond. You can't trap someone in cycles of guilt, flattery, or intimidation if their reaction changes every time. With a Sigma female, the usual tools, silence, shame, approval, authority, don't land consistently. Sometimes she'll ignore them, sometimes she'll confront them, and sometimes she'll dismantle them with icy precision. The unpredictability itself becomes a shield. But there's another layer here that most people miss. Sigma females reinvent themselves, not just their responses. They outgrow environments, identities, and even entire circles without warning. What felt true about her last year might be gone today, replaced by a version of herself no one saw coming. That's why trying to pin her down is exhausting. She's not even trying to stay the same person for your convenience. So when people call her hard to read, they're missing the point. Reading her isn't the problem. It's thinking you'll ever be able to predict her next move that's the trap. Sigma females live in constant evolution, and anyone who tries to box them in will always be left a step behind. She's not confusing, she's untethered, and that makes her unpredictable in a way most people will never be prepared to handle. Number 11. They don't hate people. They hate people's scripts. Sigma females often get unfairly branded as antisocial, like they dislike people altogether. That's not the truth. They don't hate people. They hate people's scripts. What drains them isn't human connection, but the exhausting parade of rehearsed lines, predictable behaviors, and empty performances that so many cling to. It's not humanity they walk away from, it's pretense. Most people follow scripts without even realizing it. The script of small talk, the script of workplace politics, the script of social media personas. These scripts are safe, familiar, and widely accepted, but they're also painfully fake. A Sigma female can spot them instantly, and once she sees someone playing a role instead of showing up as themselves, her patience evaporates. She isn't wired to tolerate inauthenticity just to keep the peace. This is why people misread her. When she disengages, they assume she dislikes company. But that's not the case. She thrives on raw, unfiltered exchanges. The problem is that those moments are rare. Too often, conversations are littered with clichés, fake laughter, or virtue signaling, and she'd rather conserve her energy than play along. To her, life is too short to waste on scripts that strip people of their individuality. Ironically, when someone drops the mask and speaks with real honesty, whether it's messy, vulnerable, or even controversial, the Sigma female lights up. She'll listen deeply, engage fully, and often connect with an intensity that surprises people. That's because she isn't avoiding people. She's filtering for authenticity. And when she finds it, she values it more than most. This perspective unsettles others, because it exposes how dependent most are on scripts to feel safe in social settings. They rely on predictable roles to navigate life, while the Sigma female quietly rejects the whole charade. To her, there's no pride in blending in, and no meaning in conversations where everyone is just playing parts. So no, she doesn't hate people. She hates the scripts people cling to, the ones that flatten individuality and kill genuine connection. What she's really craving is what most are too afraid to offer: raw, unfiltered humanity. And until she sees it, she'll keep her distance, not out of coldness, but out of self-respect. Number 12. They're not hard to approach. They're testing filters. People often say Sigma females are hard to approach, as if they've built walls too high for anyone to climb. That's a shallow misread. The truth is, their so-called cold exterior isn't a barrier at all. It's a filter. They don't block people out. They test them. And that test is simple. If you give up easily, you fail. If you persist with depth, patience, and substance, the wall drops, and you discover someone far warmer than you expected. This filtering process is what makes Sigma females so misunderstood. They're not unfriendly, they're deliberate. They know that letting the wrong people in can cost them peace, energy, and even identity. So instead of welcoming everyone with open arms, they use silence, reserve, or a cool demeanor to weed out those who are only looking for surface-level connections. It's not hostility, it's efficiency. They'd rather endure the label of unapproachable than waste themselves on the wrong crowd. What most don't realize is how quickly this filter can change once someone proves themselves. The same Sigma female who seemed distant at first can become incredibly open, engaging, even playful once she sees authenticity. That's because her guardedness was never about rejection, it was about protection. She wasn't hiding her true self, she was waiting to see if you could handle it. This is where many people fail the test. They take her initial reserve as disinterest and back away, never realizing they were standing at the threshold of something rare. Others who push with fake charm or empty persistence get filtered out even faster. What she's really looking for isn't effort, it's substance. Genuine curiosity, honest communication, and patience to go beyond the surface. The irony is that her filter doesn't make her unapproachable, it makes her approachable to the right people. Those who pass the test find her to be one of the most loyal and present connections they've ever had. Those who fail never see past the surface and walk away muttering about how cold she is. The difference says nothing about her and everything about them. Her coldness, then, is not a wall. It's a mirror, reflecting back what you bring, and only the ones who bring something real ever get to see what's behind it. The truth about Sigma females is this. They aren't enigmas because they're trying to be. They're enigmas because the world keeps misreading them. People confuse their filters for walls, their silence for coldness, their consistency for rebellion, and their patience for weakness. But beneath all the lazy labels lies a woman who is fiercely intentional, brutally self-aligned, and unapologetically unwilling to live on anyone else's terms. What makes her extraordinary isn't mystery for mystery's sake. It's her refusal to bend to scripts, her obsession with authenticity, and her ability to calculate moves with a precision most can't even fathom. She doesn't reject connection, risk, or belonging. She simply redefines them on her own terms. And that's exactly what unsettles people, because her existence exposes how much of theirs is built on compromise and pretense. Sigma females don't just walk a different path. They create paths where none existed. And if you're lucky enough to get past the filters and see her world up close, you'll realize she was never hard to understand. She was simply unwilling to shrink herself into something easy. So the next time someone says a Sigma female is cold, unapproachable, or risk-averse, remember this: they're not describing her. They're confessing their inability to see beyond the surface. That's the paradox of the Sigma female. She doesn't need to be understood to stand firm. But if you do understand her, you'll never see strength the same way again. If this breakdown opened your eyes to who Sigma females really are, don't just stop here. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that cuts through the noise and digs into the raw truth. Drop a like if this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to see beyond the stereotypes, and leave a comment with your own take. I read them all. And trust me, the next video goes even deeper, so make sure you stay locked in.